Russillo Show on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
Want to thank Will Cain for jumping over here after a week of First Take. He'll be with us tomorrow on the Russillo Show on ESPN Radio. Presented by Progressive Insurance, comparing rates to help you save. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today and find out how much Progressive could save you. John McEnroe doing the tour. I didn't hear him entirely with Le Batard, but they spent a lot of time on the Knicks, right? I didn't catch the whole thing, so I don't know. I imagine I'm not going to be the first person to ask about the Serena Williams stuff, day 3. So we'll do that. I'll see if I can try to trick him. And then everybody will play my question for 2 straight days.
Trick them?
Yeah.
Like how?
Like why did you leave other planets out of your rankings? And then it becomes a conversation about space, and then everybody re-airs me. They're like, oh, this Russillo guy asked McEnroe, like, why are you just keeping it to Earth?
Do you go for like hardcore journalistic chops and really grandstand against McEnroe and say, hey, why would you disrespect? Or do you...
Well, no, I'd be lying.
No, because that's clearly the play.
That would be the way to do it. Yeah, do the thing where everybody cheers for you. Yeah, I would rather go with the truth and that he was asked a question where it was clear I thought the interviewer was trying to get him to say, like, all right, yeah, what do you want to say? Like, she's just the best?
You're going for the truth?
She's the most accomplished. So, you know what? We're actually kind of doing sneaky the segment right now when I didn't even mean to do it. So let's get back to the NBA stuff. Let's start with Chris Paul. We know this, and it is a surprise. A surprise to me. I think it's a surprise to most of us that Chris Paul is going to be a member of the Houston Rockets, and what he did here, which is not what people thought he would do. People thought he would opt out, become a free agent, so I'm thinking, is he really going to leave the 5th year of money on the table because he'd be a free agent at 36 years old? Like, whenever we do the 5-year money versus the 4-year money, a lot of times I'll say, that's not entirely what's going to happen because the first year in a new deal, which would be 5 years, he's going to find a way to make up some of that. It can be close enough. But what he's doing is he's staying with his current contract, and then he'll sign a new extension with the Rockets, so he'll find a way to get all this money. So the money part aside, okay, he did something we didn't expect, but from a basketball standpoint, he wants out of L.A. and now wants in Houston.
Whoa, so let's just walk through this, Ryan, really quickly. This is what Chris Paul did. He told the Clippers, I'm going to opt out. Yeah. I am going to be a free agent, and I'm going to take less money from someone else to go play somewhere else, be that the Spurs, the Rockets, or wherever it may be. He told the Clippers that. And they said, well, don't do that, please, right? And he said, except for one scenario. If you'll trade me, I'll opt in. Then you get some value, I get my higher dollar figure, and we can work out who that is I want to go play for, right? So that's kind of the mechanics of how he had to have played this. He convinced the Clippers if they don't do what he wants, he's opting out. But he really wanted to opt in, so he gets the higher dollar figure, thus allowing the Clippers to trade him for something. The key component being they had to believe he would opt out if they didn't do this.
Yeah, that's the other part of this is that, well, I'm going to opt out anyway. But then if you end up with Patrick Beverley and a first-rounder that's only top 3 protected, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, that's actually not terrible. Look back at the sign-and-trade stuff. That this is basically kind of what it is. It feels more like a sign-and-trade, even though technically that's not what it is. Like a lot of that stuff is garbage. No, this isn't even a bad package here.
No, and it's done under dire circumstances. He held the Clippers hostage.
Beverly's a good guard. He can. It's perfect that he's a Clipper because he is one of the most annoying players in the league. So he replaces one guy that's really annoying at times in Chris Paul with somebody that's even more annoying in Beverly. Perfect.
What was Beverly? Second team or first team? Second team. All defense?
Yeah, I think it was second team, wasn't it?
So by the way, that's an understated part of this whole deal too. Now the Rockets. Backcourt defense. Little Chris Paul and Ole.
Chris Paul's great. Chris Paul's great.
James Harden?
Yeah, but don't even...
you have Beverly next to James Harden. Now that's what you had. Now you have Chris Paul next to James Harden.
Was Chris Paul first team? You know Chris Paul's really good defensively.
All right.
So
first team? Was he really first team?
I'm going to go check it right now. But
So I think...
All NBA.
Well, it was just, hell with me.
He's small. You wanted to say he was small.
He's small, guys. He's small.
What about the Clippers then? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you want to do with this topic? Is it more interesting who the Clippers are? Or is it more
I think there's so many interesting things. I think it's one, that the Clippers got back what they got back after being held hostage by Chris Paul. I'm not indicting Chris Paul. I'm just saying he put them over a barrel and they got something out of it. Pat Beverly, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, first-round pick. Not bad when you're put in that situation. However, I don't know what the Clippers do going forward. And with Ramona Shelburne saying it's a players' league, and you and your super team analysis, like who's going to be able to create super teams, who's going to use their roster to leverage the next guy in, add that to Ramona Shelburne. It's really about friends. It's really about buddies. I don't know. To me, the question is, who does Blake want to play with? Maybe the answer is DeAndre, and he stays with the Clippers. But I would just go throughout the league and say who's friends with who, because that's the building component of a super team.
And you think that the Dallas Mavericks, that's why they can't ever get anybody there.
Well, that's me internalizing. It's just clearly the Dallas Mavericks have had, they don't anymore, but over the last 10 to 15 years, they've had, a top 5 player in the NBA, at the very least, in Dirk Nowitzki, and never been able to entice that free agent to Dallas. Never been able to do it. And if the league is about, as Ramona said, players who want to play with each other, it's just like, does Dirk not have buddies? Guys don't want to play with Dirk?
So that feels a little bit more like a fan moment, though. Is it not?
That's
or is that
fact.
All right. But
That's
what,
fact.
Nash, they let Nash go, right? So is that on Dirk?
They let Nash go.
I think there are more fan bases looking around feeling like they are the team that can't get a free agent. And what I would say is that the way the math works on this is that most of you aren't going to get a free agent. So everybody that's setting aside cap room and going, oh, wow, we're going to have cap room, we're going to go ahead and recruit, it doesn't guarantee anything. I mean, nobody wanted to go to New York for the longest time. I remember everybody going, oh, well, LeBron will want to go there. He has a Yankees hat. Oh, he's going to want to go to Brooklyn. Jay-Z's 1%. He loves Jay-Z. I remember Miami. Like, Miami's going to get Gordon Hayward? I don't know. I mean, the Rockets have been linked to a million guys, and when this first report came out, I thought, is this just Daryl Morey telling people, hey, keep me in the news with this thing? Like, I'm linked to one other dude. Like, the Rockets were getting Chris Bosh. The Rockets were active on this guy. They want to put themselves in a position for Melo. They want to be able to show that they can get LeBron. And then they actually do it. That's the part that I think is the most important thing. Not who the Rockets are right now as a basketball team, Will, but that they are 2 players and missing the third of whatever that next step is, the next star that decides he wants to bounce, whoever that may be. I don't know if it means they're going to try to find a way to get in on the Paul George thing, even though contractually, I mean, they'd have pieces if they wanted to move Ryan Anderson. But they look at themselves saying, we are a better recruiter of talent now because we have James Harden and Chris Paul, knowing this is still not good enough. The goal isn't be better than Golden State by the end of the week. The goal is put yourself in a position to even have another player want to join up with you so you can go at the Warriors.
Yes. But do you think, can we put entire faith that Chris Paul is going to then sign this extension with the Houston Rockets?
That's a really good question, because the theory is what?
Well, if we're playing the buddy game here, Chris Paul is going to be a free agent the same year that LeBron James is. So if this is all about players running this league who want to be together, LeBron James is a free agent next year, and now Chris Paul has just signed a 1-year extension to be a free agent in the same year. I mean, wait. I gotta do the equals. I gotta do the therefores, the 3 dots.
No, you don't. You don't. I'm just sitting here. I'm listening to you, and I can't say that you're wrong. I think it's fascinating until
he signs an extension with the Rockets in about a week.
Until he does an extension with the Rockets at some point this season. But if he doesn't do it during the time he's allowed to do it, there you go.
Banana boat time.
Look, I talked to a team last night. It's like, LeBron's gone, right? He's gone. Because we were talking Paul George, right? I was trying to figure out all the different Paul George stuff. Because I think the Celtics, the thing you have to worry about if you're Utah is that even if Utah's the favorite right now to retain Gordon Hayward, what if they can say to Gordon, be like, if we get you, we're going to get Paul George. And we're telling Paul George, if we can sign Gordon Hayward, we're going to also trade for you. And then those two dudes go, man, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Like, we might have a shot at this. I think that's what all these teams are doing. They're going, if Miami's going to pull off what they did 7 years ago, if Golden State's going to add Durant to this absurd team, then where's the next move for me if I'm in that top 20 player group where I can just team up with somebody else? Like, that's what it feels like. This is the start. Paul to the Rockets isn't just a big-time free agent moving on. And technically, I know he's not a free agent, but we all get the point here. This is, can we have an even more concentrated group of talent at the top of the league?
Did the Rockets just set the trade value for Paul George? They just sent this package of Pat Beverly, Sam Decker, Lou Williams, and a 2018 first-rounder for only 1 guaranteed year of Chris Paul. Now, you can say, well, maybe there's a wink-wink, a handshake. We're all going to make this work in the long run between them. But there's not yet. It's not a done deal. And that would be the same pretenses under which the Celtics would trade for Paul George. We think we can get him on an extension. So is this the going rate for 1 year of a superstar? Is this what Paul George will command? Something like this?
I think all these deals are so different. And I don't think this is real estate. I really think it's, hey, you thought he was leaving, so we kind of didn't have to give you anything. But we did the player the favor, we did the agent the favor, and more front offices are going to find a way to do superstars the favor because that's just the way the league works. All right, up next, John McEnroe. We'll ask him about all the stuff of the last couple days and also why tennis players are insane. It's ESPN Radio. We'll get back to all the NBA news with Phil Jackson and Chris Paul now with the Rockets. Phil Jackson's not with the Rockets. I should have paused a little bit longer in the middle of that. Will Cain, the Russillo Show. It's ESPN Radio. Really excited to talk to John McEnroe, former world number one in tennis. We know him. We also know that he was a topic of conversation this week, and he joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. His book, But Seriously, went on sale yesterday. John, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Yourself?
I'm good. I was in a bad mood yesterday because I saw your CBS hit, and if I were you, I would never go on that show again.
Well, you think they came after me too hard?
I thought, look, I don't know you, other than I've met you once or twice here. I think this whole thing's a joke, and I thought the way they came after you yesterday, it was so obvious. And then for one of them to ask you what you would be ranked currently at 58 years old, as if that's some sort of win, like how were you able to kind of compose you? I guess you've just been in the famous role enough and in the spotlight enough, but were you ever annoyed? How were you able to control yourself yesterday?
Well, I was sort of amazed that it sort of blown up in the first place because this isn't the first time that people have discussed this type of thing, including myself. But I guess in a way, that's sort of what my book is about, sort of perspective and trying to look at the glass half full and trying to look at the positives and realize that for the most part, I've been really lucky and that as I look forward in my life, I've got a lot to be thankful for and to try to enjoy that. So, this is just another one of those learning experiences, and I guess you could say, well, maybe it just people are more aware of my book than they would have been otherwise. So I'm surprised that it was sort of I felt twisted and that people were sort of taken aback just because I came up with a number, and no one really wants to sort of respond back to what they'd actually think it was or believe. And if it could be a non-issue, I said this for 30, 40 years. Why is it that in tennis is the only sport where this is talked about? Why don't they talk about the girls in the WNBA and how they do if they played against the Warriors or in the NBA or any other sport for that matter? You never hear it except tennis. So I guess from that standpoint, it sort of gets on my nerves.
John, this is Will Cain along with Ryan here. Both of us talked about this yesterday. Ryan on his program, I did it on First Take. It's interesting you bring up the number. Do you think there's a number you could have given that would not have elicited outrage? Probably
if I had said somewhere in the top 100. I think that would have been a lot easier for my daughters. I have 4 girls and 2 boys, so it started years ago. You can't beat Serena. Come on. Thanks, girls. And now it's sort of morphed into now what would happen. They don't seem to ask the other players. I always seem to be the brunt of this Serena thing. I don't know why. I think Serena is one of the great athletes in the last 100 years, and she's done a phenomenal job for tennis. I don't know where it would be without her being around the last 10 years. We haven't had a male guy win anything since Roddick 14 years ago. So we've got our work cut out for us, and so if this brings some type of publicity or some type of interest or some type of awareness to it, so that maybe more kids would want to play it or somehow be able to play it, then I'll look back in this and be happy about it. Otherwise, I think it's sort of a big waste of time.
John McEnroe with us, the Russillo Show, Will Cain on ESPN Radio. I haven't read your book yet. I read Agassi's, and I loved it. And what I really didn't understand as somebody who just casually plays tennis is you can drive yourself crazy out there. Like people can say, okay, this guy's more of a personality, this guy's doing this, but what is it about being alone the way you are in these high pressure moments that is specific to tennis that you guys are basically getting in your own heads or trying to keep yourselves out of it?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I didn't do a very good job of composing myself most of my career, so I may be the wrong person to ask, but I did find growing up as a kid that the fact that I could play other sports. I played a couple of years of high school basketball. I played 4 years of high school soccer. I did like team sports, and I think that was a way to blow off some steam and take some of the pressure off. I think the way the parents look at the game now, they think they've got to tell their kids at 8 or 9 years old they got to focus only on tennis. I think that's a big mistake. I think you see more and more people homeschooling in tennis, which I think is a big mistake because we're already very isolated. So you have to nurture kids a lot more, particularly in a one-on-one game, so they could be mature enough and emotionally stable enough to handle this. That's another reason why I advocate kids going to college, because if you look at tennis careers now, they're peaking. Look at what Roger's doing at 35 and more guys in their 30s. So guys are figuring out a way to prolong it, to recover more quickly. They have more of an understanding of what they need to do. So therefore, it's harder to sort of break through at a younger age. You're not really seeing guys under 20 the way you did in the past. It happened more often. So this, to me, is a no-brainer. Let these kids sort of grow up as people and go to a couple years of college where they can experience growing up on their own, experience being around a team. Then they go off and they're much better able to handle it. We have recent history with Steve Johnson, one of our top Americans, 4 years at SC. John Isner went to 4 years of school. And those are our top, two of our top players. So I think that hopefully people will take a closer look at that, because I don't think it will hurt their careers at all if they at least spend a couple of years.
What did you put in the book that maybe you were reluctant to keep in?
What did I put in the book that I was reluctant? Well, anytime you sort of get into anything personal or something that when some difficulties I had with my own kids, that gets to be something that is tough, because as a parent, you're only sort of as happy as your most unhappy kid, and so that makes it difficult. I got 6, and particularly when you're in a situation where you're going, been in a divorce and trying to deal with the ramifications of that, and then you have an opportunity like I did with a second marriage that's been really good for me personally, but continue to be, being a stepmom is very tricky in a best case scenario. So to try to how to handle that and figure out how that all pans out, to me has been difficult, and something that if I had a choice, I try to, it's not like I'm revealing everything, but anytime you get into things like that, personal things, it's a little tough.
John, we've got the publicity sheet here for your book, But Seriously, and one of the sentences in this synopsis says, "In But Seriously, McEnroe confronts his demons and reveals his struggle to reinvent himself." What were those demons?
Well, the demons was, ranging from not being able to enjoy myself on the court the way that Roger Federer does, and having to sort of have that played out publicly and having that cause problems at times, to feeling like failure as a husband or a father, and not doing a good enough job in my first marriage, and hopefully trying to make up for that. And also in sports, as you all know, covering it, a lot of guys, myself, I peaked at 25, 26 years old, so it's not easy emotionally as someone who still feels like they're growing up and trying to figure things out, to figure out how to sort of look at the final 2/3 of your life and want it to be as productive as something when you walk down the center court of Wimbledon. So all those things take a lot of time. I'm still working on it. I'm 58. I still feel like I need to wean myself. I'm lucky. 40 years ago this year, I got to the semis at Wimbledon. People still know my name, a fair amount of people, and I'm still sort of out there, which I'm very proud of. But I want to be able to sort of enjoy the years of my life if, when I walk into a place, they don't know who I am or they don't care. And then I'll still be able to appreciate what's I'm looking at moving forward.
John, thanks a lot, man. Congrats on the book. Look forward to reading it. All right.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
There you go, John McEnroe. But seriously, that went on sale yesterday. The long-awaited follow-up #1 bestseller, You Cannot Be Serious. There you go. We talked to John McEnroe. I think he'd probably go on CBS again.
Yeah. John acquitted himself fine. He's some people like confrontation.
Do you think people listen and be like, No, I think for the most part we all make up our minds. Like, those are all great points, but I made up my mind last week. Coming up next, Phil Jackson out in New York. How can you be so competitive in your life and get to the point where it seems like you don't care? That's what I think. Phil probably doesn't think that. Will definitely doesn't. We'll do that next right here on the Russillo Show at ESPN Radio.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Another edition of Worst Take. a little bit later. We have two of them, right, Cerruti? Perfect. The Russillo Show today. Nothing makes a summer birthday or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. We got Will Cain with us. I hope you're not. We do worst take when you're not here. Don't worry about it.
I did when I see it on the rundown. I'm like, what's that? What's that? Is that me?
It rhymes, is what it is. It has nothing to do with it's the furthest thing from a knock on anything other than some of the takes that we get from people.
That's what I thought you're getting at, and I thought that's what was going to happen. You're going to run one of mine out, maybe from this morning.
There'd probably be some stuff to choose from on the Phil Jackson front. Can we do the Phil Jackson story, and can we do it just a slightly different way?
I'll do it whatever way you want to do it.
There's a bunch of angles that we haven't even hit on yet. So you wake up this morning, Phil Jackson out after 3 years. He gets 2 more years of money because apparently, and it was announced in April that the option had already been picked up and had been picked up for a while. And James Dolan went on the Michael Kay show with LaGreca and Rosenberg. He was on forever. It was actually a great interview. I was in my car listening to the ESPN app trying to get it all because people were just outraged. They'd had it with the Knicks. What's going on with Phil? And James Dolan's like, back off. Like, I hired a guy with a great resume, paid him a ton of money. I did what everybody wanted me to do, and here's Dolan from, 2 months ago?
3 years ago, I signed a contract with Phil Jackson, the man who has more championship rings, as far as I know, than anybody else. And, he was the best guy that we thought we could find to run the New York Knicks. And I made an agreement with him, and the agreement didn't say, right, that you have to have this amount of wins, right, et cetera, by this time, or anything of the sort like that. I literally turned over the entire basketball operations over to Phil and to Steve, and that is where I'm at. Whether I like the results or don't like the results, I am going to honor that agreement all the way to the end.
To the very end, because it's a $24 million mistake, essentially picking up the final 2 years of this option. He gets the full $60 million. He's out.
So listen, Ryan, this to me is where everyone's focus should be. So I have been defensive of Phil, but it is not because Phil is great. I think the hyperbole of acting like Phil has been awful, and as Brian Windhorst said, the worst GM in, NBA history. Max Kellerman said perhaps in sports history.
That's Isaiah was worse than Phil.
And I'm the one with the hot take. I just think it's so far beyond the pale, right, to go there. So, but the truth of the matter is, while defending Phil Jackson as not awful is fun, because I'm not defending that he's great, although I think he's going to leave behind some things that a couple years from down the road, the Knicks will be something, and he will get none of the credit, a la Sam Hinkie with the 76ers. I think the Knicks they're a compromised version of that. Won't be as good as the Sixers, won't be quite what Hinkie left behind. But Porzingis, Hernan Gomez, Ntilikina, watch. A couple more years, it's going to look okay at best. I mean, at worst. Okay at worst. But the point is, the real problem, the real thing I'm defending here is you're belly aching about symptoms. You're taking Dayquil, all right? Your runny nose might be drying up with Phil Jackson here, and you're all celebrating today, but your infection, your virus is James Dolan. Okay, now, I know I'm on a soapbox, but just hear me out for one more second on this. Harry Truman, 33rd President of the United States, kept a little wooden placard on his desk when he was President of the United States that said, the buck stops here. And what he meant by that is, I make the decision.
Not the big one.
Well, there's that. Let's not go fall down that rabbit hole. Okay.
That's from Fletch.
But he literally meant, I make the decisions, and there's no place else to pass the blame on to. James Dolan, when he hired Phil, actually said, if this doesn't go well, I'm blaming it on the guy that introduced us. It was a throwaway, flippant comment, but it's the way this guy has run this organization for 19 years that has led to 8 different executives, 11 different coaches, and the 4th worst record in the NBA. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. You want to celebrate Phil being gone? Your real problem remains.
There's no disagreement to that, but you can't defend Phil sort of retroactively because Dolan is bad. Like, nobody's going, okay, Knicks problem solved, but Phil was bad at this. He didn't seem he was competitive anymore. That's what I can't understand. I don't do anything nearly as important day to day as what Phil Jackson did. Phil Jackson got to do something so many people who love basketball would kill to do. You get to run one of the 30 NBA franchises in the world. You get to run one. and you didn't really even want to. You disagree with that. I don't know, man. He didn't. Well, he kept turning it down. And then they paid him $60 million, and he ended up getting all of it. And that you're in this position where you don't go to the combine one year. Reports of you falling asleep during workouts. Some of these transactions where you go, did you watch any Bulls games last year with Joakim Noah? Like, you gave him $72 million. I don't even need to do the Courtney Lee deal. What I'm telling you is, how could you be competitive? How could you be somebody who is in sports your entire life and be competitive and give off the impression that you're no longer competitive? And why, when I say, like, I don't do anything nearly as important, I could never do this job showing up 5 minutes before it every day and saying, just tell me where the button is and letting it fly, because I'd be bad at it. Other people can do that.
Other people do that.
Well, I know other people do it. And some people are really good at it, and some people you're like, does that guy just show up 5 minutes before and never prep at all? I would be embarrassed to do this talk show without being prepared. Maybe if I was 70, maybe if I was 60, I won't care. I'll be like, my name is this. You're going to pay me this money. Hey, calls. 888-SAY ESPN. What's on your mind? Let's fix baseball. 3 hours. Go. Phil seemed to have gotten to that point with an NBA franchise. And I don't know how you dispute that.
Well, because you use words like impression and feeling and seem. And here's the thing.
So you think he was into it. We'll make it definitive.
It's reverse engineering. No.
Leave out all those words.
We're first taking it right now, and I'm going to get crushed for this.
That's okay, but I want to dial it
back. I'm trying to dial it back.
We almost never do this, though, you and I. Like, take out all the words. Was he into it?
Okay. The thing is, I can't say yes or no. Because,
right.
Of course, I hear Stephen A. Smith say, the reports are that he laughed, he doesn't care. Then you hear the thing, you and I were on the air together, people's like, he fell asleep during a prospect workout. But the point is, Ryan, all that starts building on itself because it's reinforcing a narrative that somebody already put in place, that we want to believe that Phil doesn't care. So what I'd rather do is this. I'd rather judge him on the merits of what he did. Now, I'm not arguing that Phil deserves an A as GM of the Knicks, but I don't think he's an F either. And that's what everybody's pretending like. He got an F. He made mistakes. Joakim Noah, mistake. Carmelo extension, mistake. Handling of Carmelo as a person, as an employee, as a manager, pretty not good, but that's terrible. A messy thing going on in a lot of different ways. But he also did some things that worked. He did draft Kristaps, and I know there is a movement to say he didn't want Kristaps Porzingis, and he had to be talked into it, so he doesn't get credit for that. I think Ntilikina is going to be something people look back on pretty.
You just came at me at the we knows and the don't knows. We don't know that, like, a lot of people tell you he didn't draft Porzingis.
What?
That he didn't draft Porzingis. We don't know if Ntilikina is going to be any good. Like, you're already giving him credit for Ntilikina as a lottery pick. He hadn't even played.
Okay, take Ntilikina off.
Okay.
I got the rest of the list of the transactions, the draft picks, the trades that he's made. And you know what? There's none on there, besides Porzingis, that you're like, wow, home run, genius move. But you know what else isn't on there? Bunch of, wow, what a stinker there. Tyson Chandler trade? Not great. Not terrible.
I agree with you on the Shumpert J.R. Smith thing. People that are now saying, like, that somehow becomes something on his tombstone, and you go, well, that when no one cared. You were psyched to get out of the contracts, and then they played well with Cleveland. There's one other piece of this that I want to get to probably next hour. We haven't talked about the Melo element of this whatsoever. I mean, it's just sort of been surface stuff, but there's something really important about the Melo. I should probably just save it. We'll just save it for the third hour because you still have Chris Paul. He's now with the Rockets. But up next, 2 takes on the Phil thing that are the worst takes you'll hear all day. And they're not from either or I, or Will or I. So that's perfect. Russillo Show, reminding you, if you're at work, you can stream all 3 hours of the show on ESPNRadio.com. It's ESPN Radio. Michael Leaves, who is one of our anchors here, great guy, spent a ton of time out in L.A., just posted something. This is on Facebook, right? So Kevin Winter, who's doing the Sports Center updates for us, alerted to us. This is some really heavy stuff here on why Chris Paul didn't want to be in L.A. anymore, and it does have to do with the Rivers family. So we're going to do that at the top of the next hour, really expand, explore the space, have plenty of room. So good heads up from Kevin and Michael Leaves, who knows this team really well. Will Cain, The Russillo Show on ESPN Radio. Get in touch with us at Russillo Show, 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Do we have the production? Because I love when we tweak the production. It's not first take. It's the lesser-known worst take.
What's the worst thing we heard yesterday?
I truly believe Colin Kaepernick could be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever.
What?
I know you believe the Cavs are going to lose. But in there, I believe they're going to lose, too. When they do lose, is it time to blow this team up?
Whoa.
Seriously?
It's the worst take
So let me get this right. You guys are on Durant's case? You remember the last guy that decided to walk his own path and was criticized by others? Ever heard of a guy named Jesus Christ?
On the Ryen Russillo Show.
Whatever.
That was just that was our religious podcast that we did that never aired. Not a shocker. Didn't get approved, but we just, we had some thoughts and some things. So here's the premise. You hear somebody say something like Jaws once said that about Kaepernick. That was Willie Colon co-hosting with me today. Think of the Cavs don't beat the Warriors, blow this whole team up.
Was that an interview with somebody who said, seriously? Who said that?
That was me in the background where I went, whoa! And it was with Andrew Sharp, right? So is that Sharp chuckling? Because you hear me go like, whoa. I just did the high school whoa. So this tweet was at Mike and Mike this morning, and this is Vince chiming in. And post Phil, he asked this question. And I heard it when I was in the car, and I immediately come to work. I go, Cerruti, chop that up, because that's terrible. Is Jordan's legacy even greater now with Phil's demise? So we don't have Jordan ranked high enough. We've just, whatever it's at right now, just crank it up a bit because you realize now that he was, we're retroactively going back and downgrading Phil as a coach.
Jordan was doing that in spite of Phil.
That's the new thing we do now, too, is it's not bad enough to just beat on you for days.
This is my thing, man. Granted, in self-awareness, maybe...
Don't attach yourself to my good point here.
Maybe I dug myself in on this Phil thing a little bit to everybody's reaction, but this is how I get there. This is what happens to me. This nonsense that, hey, turns out, Phil, rotten, stinks, all along. Who knew? 11 rings, every one of them bumbled into.
I still want to know how he's ranked ahead of Isaiah as an executive for the Knicks. Do we have to do that game again? We did it once with Isaiah, and he didn't have a great time. But we appreciate him coming on. Think about that. This whole time, 11 rings, Lakers, Bulls run. Yeah, wasn't great. Wasn't great out of a timeout. Now we know. In 2017, it took us almost 20 years. But now we know, day to day.
Hey,
a lot of that was Tex Winter.
Remember Emmett in that Cardinals jersey? Turns out, wasn't that good a running back.
Yeah.
All those years with the Cowboys?
Didn't happen.
Wasn't that good.
It's unbelievable. I don't remember ever doing that. By the way, you want to remember this? Remember Bill Russell, head coach of the Sacramento Kings? Do you? No, you don't. He was 53. He went 17-41. Didn't work out. Oh, imagine you were like, all-time greats, Magic. Is LeBron in the conversation? How come we leave out Russell? Oh, dude, he went 17-41 as a head coach of the Sacramento Kings in 88.
Fraud.
Yeah. Let's back off the whole Bill Russell's the greatest stuff. Ted Williams, greatest hitter alive. Did you see his run with the Washington Senators as their manager? Under 500. Never got to a playoff. He was good on a fastball. Took a few too many walks for this guy. Did you see him as a manager? Like, that's the stuff that's unfair. All right, we got one more here. Dominic Foxworth this morning on with Levitard and those guys. This is his Phil Jackson wanting to get fired theory.
Even drafting Porzingis was his attempt at getting fired that also backfired. Because if you remember, no one thought that Porzingis should go at that spot. Right. Phil Jackson's like, I know how I'll get him. I'll get one of these long international players that never quite pan out. Everyone thinks it's going to be Dirk, but won't be. Then they'll think I'm crazy for passing up on Justice Winslow.
So he's upset when he panned out?
And then he's like, damn you, Zingas.
7'3" unicorn. Foiled again.
Now that I hear it a second time, I don't know that Dominic really believes that. And by the way, no one thought Porzingis would go to the Knicks. It's not that people didn't think Porzingis could go top 4. They thought if it got to the Knicks wouldn't take him.
I mean, I seriously don't know how I've ended up in the hot take seat when the conspiracy theory that Phil is sabotaging the New York Knicks is somehow mainstream.
So what was it, year one? Year one, he's drafting Porzingis on purpose to get fired.
The conspiracy theory is the rational take. Nuts.
What's your Twitter handle, just so people can keep in touch with you throughout the next 24 hours?
Is that Will Cain?
Do you ever throw the ESPN on there? Or are you your own brand?
Do you have ESPN on yours?
I don't.
There we go. I think you just answered your question.
I don't think it's because of that.
Well, I mean, I didn't even... I just been here. I just got here. Been here 2 years.
So you're going to put it on one day?
Doubt it.
Does that mean you're above it or stupid? Because I don't know what it means for me either.
I know. You keep asking me questions that apply to you. Figure it out yourself, then come back and tell me.
All right, I will. Done. Michael Eaves. An exclusive look that has not been told about Chris Paul wanting away from the Clippers. Awesome stuff next.